In compliance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, entitled Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this public meeting was provided in the notices of March 26, 2012. Said notice was posted at the entrance to the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Sun, the Star Ledger, North Jersey Herald News, and the Nutley Journal. Mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, advertised in the Nutley Sun on April 5, 2012, posted on the district website. This is an official meeting. Please stand. Moment of silence and flag salutes. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Mrs. David here. Mrs. Lynn here. Mr. Kaczynski.
Here.
Dr. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Russo. Here. Mrs. Scalera.
Here.
Mrs. Pizzotto.
Here.
Mr. Kopka.
Here. First order of business is a presentation, recognition of the academically speaking students. Dr. Lasker.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Ms. Marcia Napolitano, who's going to talk about the academically speaking program.
With your permission, I'm actually not going to use that microphone because I have a very, very loud voice. In March, the Essex County Academically Speaking Tournament began with 22 teams from 10 Essex County school districts. And when it ended, on May 10th, after many weeks of preliminaries and quarterfinals and semifinals, the Nutley Academically Speaking team was the second place overall winner in the elementary division. And I'm also happy to announce that the John H. Walker Middle School team was, in the middle school division, the first place overall. Actually, we were comparing the sizes of the trophies. I wanted to make sure that even though we had the second place one, that it was like console size. I'm very, very proud of these students who achieved this. I'm speaking of the elementary team now. I'm very proud of them because the 4 members of this team participated in academically speaking for the first time ever. So for them to have gone as far as they did, to have ended up being the second place winner, I'm very proud of them. And also, on behalf of these students and the parents, I would like to thank the board and Mr. Lazovic for just allowing us to have this wonderful, challenging academic program. And here they are. Vincent Alopra. Carrie Zhang. Sean Fitzpatrick. Sean was actually our captain this year, and not present tonight because of a very, very important other event, Jack Chrisman. The Essex County Elementary School second place winner. Over to the middle school coaches, teachers who would like to talk.
Good evening. I'm Joanne DeGrower. This is Christine Standardi. We are both co-moderators and coaches of the trivia team on the junior high level. It has been quite a year. Last year, we lost the first place trophy by one question. So this year, our 4 8th graders who returned came back with a vengeance. In our first round, we beat the Livingston team, and very respectively, nice job, but we did have to come back for the second round. In our second round, we beat the Milburn team with a record high score of 1,070. No one has ever scored that high in this competition prior to that. So we did have a pass for our third round. On May 10th was our last and final round, and we faced the Cedar Grove team. And again, we did a very respectable job, obviously, and we have first place. We are proud of these students on many levels. One level being they're bright, they're quick, but the other level being they are truly a nice group of young people. And they represented us well in every match, not just by their earning points, but definitely by their conduct, by their presence, and we will certainly miss our 4 remaining 8th graders. But fortunately, we have the 7th graders coming up, and we look forward to the 6th graders. So thank you, Ms. Napolitano, for training them so well. Okay, getting right to it, our captain, Dante Antondola. David is Gary.
Sebastian Ruiz. Unfortunately, I don't think he can make it. He's another 8th grader. Hamid Pushman. Again, I don't think he can make it, unfortunately.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on at the end here. Another 7th grader, though, that is here, William Stavridis. Alex DiMartino. I don't think he can make it. Declan Tindola. We also have Frank Geltrude. It must be baseball season.
No, actually, it's soccer tryouts.
Oh, it's not a tryout. Jake Iverson and Sylvan Susada, which is like
With the trophy. Hold it up there.
just the two. Just the whole team.
I'd like to extend from the board congratulations to all the students who did such an outstanding job, and to their coaches who I'm sure had a big influence on the outcome, on how they performed. Congratulations again. We'll now be going into executive session. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss the contract for legal services. Be it further resolved that the results of the discussion be made public by inclusion on the agenda of the subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, although the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. So moved.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. We will be returning approximately 7:45.
Not yet. I pressed the red button, right?
motion to go back into open?
Make the motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Call roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Norton.
Here.
Ms. Flynn.
Here.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Here.
Dr. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Scalera.
Here.
Mr. Pizzato.
Here.
Mr. Cookta.
Here. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I know we're already a little bit late, I apologize, but there are a number of things to cover. First off, I want to follow up on an earlier report we talked about. It's the end of the year, and there are a number of things that we do as a Board of Education, one of which is transferring staff. I want to comment on that. When the Board of Education brought me on here, they were adamant that we focus on instruction and education. I have to say that obviously I was a teacher for a long time. I know what it's like to teach in a building. You become very close with that building, with the staff, with the students, with what goes on. I know that you make connections with parents, with the administrators. It really is, and Nutley is no different in this sense. It's part of the family, and these decisions are very difficult. I was also, though, tasked with making those difficult decisions for the good of the students. So when we came in July, we needed to set the process using all the administrators working with the association leadership, as well as the Board of Education, to try and get all the information possible. So we had a comprehensive understanding of what the problems were in district and how we could best approach them. We implemented a new evaluation system, which we're going to talk about later on this evening. That evaluation system involved the administrators getting together by level, sometimes on a weekly basis, discussing staff as well as students, what's going on in the buildings, talking about building personality, strengths of team, individual teachers, and most specifically student performance. Those conversations led us into a review of our non-tenured staff members. We actually speak about every single non-tenured staff member following the process and format. It takes a number of days to get through depending on how many non-tenured at a given level that we have. From there, then we sit down and we look building by building at the building, shifting populations. There's been a lot of conversation recently about populations growth, what we call bubbles, sections, numbers of sections changing, class size always being an issue so that we can make sure that we're providing the best possible instructional environment for our students. We also look building by building data on student performance, not just state test scores, but how building principals and coordinators feel that instruction is or is not benefiting the actual students in the building. And then from there, having mapped out what we need district-wide, we try and rebuild. It's sometimes difficult because there are personnel issues, we can't have a conversation about all the specifics, which really makes it difficult publicly to try and explain to people what we go through. Every single decision that we make was connected. This was communicated with the board throughout. There was never one move. Because the district is so intertwined, always looking at how to create the best possible teams across the district to better serve students every day. It's a very complicated conversation. That being said, we tried to make sure we support staff by explaining to them exactly what the process is, how we go through the process in as timely a manner as possible, communicate with them on a personal level exactly what's going on. I will tell you I was a little bit surprised. Contrary to my past experience, for many reasons, I guess transfers here have in the past been seen as a negative, which is odd because oftentimes we've been moving some of our best teachers in a way. Parents will tell you so, I think their peers will tell you so, performance will tell you so. I can tell you that those were done in the shape of looking at an entire district to put the best possible teams together so that everyone can succeed at the highest possible levels. That said, constantly get input from the board as to what they're doing in the community, what they know about the schools. I am the new person here, so while I bring the process, I didn't bring the information nor necessarily the decisions. But at the end of the day, the decisions have to be mine. So if people have questions and concerns, my door has been open. I've met with groups of teachers, groups of parents. I've spoken with countless people on the phone before, during, and after school to try to make sure we convey all the possible information. The one thing that I keep coming back to is that however it may have been seen in the past, we're trying to make the best decisions for the students of the district and putting all of our staff together in the best possible configurations. That said, it's my belief that we keep making the right decisions in the right way for the right reasons. For a number of years, people will believe that we are doing the right things for the right reasons in the right way. And I can tell you that having been here almost a full year at this point, I really have not come across a stronger staff when it comes to cohesiveness. They care about each other, they care about the students. It's our job to do the exact same thing and work with them, take their feedback and their information and try to continue to make those decisions. So while I know it's a difficult time during the year, we have to make some of those difficult decisions to try and move things. One of the things that the board tasked me with was that both getting this from our parents, from the Board of Education, from our faculty and staff, we have in many ways plateaued. We've been doing things in one way for a long time, and student performance has followed, and there really is no way of arguing that. And so we're not trying to do something different, we're just trying to make sure that whatever we do makes sense. Sometimes that brings change, which is not always comfortable. Other times, all it does is reaffirm that what we're doing and the way we're doing it is the right thing. And so what we're trying to do is follow a process, so to recognize both of those, when what we're doing is absolutely what's necessary for kids, and the other option when it can be done a better way. That being said, as far as a different way, the second topic I want to talk about is the state report cards. They were released by the state of New Jersey a little over a week ago. There are some changes to state report cards. The most notable is this idea of adequate daily progress, AYP, which has over the past decade really been, in a way, school's report card, looking to see how students are performing on those state tests, and are we meeting adequate daily progress not just as a district, but in every single subgroup. The state of New Jersey applied for a waiver from the No Child Left Behind legislation, and we were granted the waiver. And because of that, part of it is that they're going to be labeling 3 different groups of schools: focus schools, priority schools, and reward schools. And those lists were released, and as you can see, Nutley's not on any of them. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's a challenge for us in the sense that the way they define these 3 populations, one of the largest criteria is the difference between subgroups, and based on our demographics, we don't have large subgroups. So it's going to be difficult for us to really show exceptional growth in those groups. The good news is, based on our performance, which is overall strong, we don't fall into the 2 low groups, which are either focus and priority schools. I've kind of looked at this as a new era of personal or individual district responsibility. In a way, what the state was trying to do was take some of the restraints that legislation imposes on districts away so that we can better do our work. Focus more of our time less on reporting and more on instructing. And with that will come, in a way, I guess, a new level of responsibility as far as we are in control of our own destiny. So it's an exciting piece. If you look at the state report card information, what you're going to see is what you've seen pretty much since they started rolling out the state report cards, and not much has changed, both for Nutley and for most of the districts across the state. Obviously, we're looking to do something about that. Third piece I want to talk about, we have a number of staff members here who've been involved in the Aspiring Administrators Academy. We got a lot of feedback from our staff members who both wanted to spend more time talking about what it is that we do, educating children, but also had aspirations possibly for administration. We've been working with a group of teachers anywhere from once to twice a month throughout the school year, discussing every topic imaginable, from barriers breaking into the school to budget, instruction, assessment, legislation, legal issues, certainly security. And they've had a great conversation, which is really what we try to foster all year long in many instances. So much so that the initial feedback from them is that they're looking to continue next year and recommend that we create a second cohort to get other people involved in these kinds of conversations. So I want to thank and congratulate them. Just kind of conclude with the board that we've had our final meeting. We'll be sending out a survey to the members to get more information back, and then plan to continue that kind of professional development next year. Common vision, our strategic planning. I'm happy to announce that our final meeting will be a week from today, on the 18th, followed a week later with our full presentation to the board on a new strategic plan. The committee has been working tirelessly for a number of months under the leadership of Dr. Libera, and as the board had asked back in July, I'm confident that come the 25th we'll be rolling out an energetic and I think well-directed strategic plan. I did want to reconfirm for everyone again this idea of last days of school. Just number one, to talk about philosophy here. I feel instructional day earlier in the year is far more valuable than instructional day the last week of June. And because of that, when we build into the calendar our 4 emergency closing days, if we do not use those days, they will come off the end of the year. There's a calendar on the front page of the website. Clearly details where we are and where we could be based on the emergency closing days. That calendar will find a spot on our new website, which we plan to roll out sometime in July. It will be there the entire year. So anyone with questions could use to go in the same spot on the internet and find exactly what's going on at the end of the year, including our pre-K and kindergarten graduations, our 8th grade graduation, 6th grade graduation, as well as the high school graduation. So those dates are up. Just to confirm again, currently our last day of school, and knock on wood, there will be no more emergency closings for the year, is June 20th. Our high school graduation, 6th grade and 8th grade graduations will take place on that day. Our high school graduation is always locked because of project graduation, and will remain Friday the 22nd. As mentioned, the website, we have students from, many of you have seen the art shows around both at the elementary, the middle, and at the high school. We have a lot of talent in the district, and in preparation for the website, amongst the other things that we're doing, Ms. Vanderhaven and her graphic art students are going around the district right now taking pictures to line up the website and give kind of a personal and unique feel to our website. Pictures taken by our students trying to show more character of our buildings and of our staff, and so they're out and about doing that work right now. It seems to have been a trend-breaking year for us, the Junior Olympics. We went very successfully, I think. Thank you to all the teachers and the administrators involved, and I say that beyond what they normally do because it rained for the first time, so I'm told, since anyone can remember. Mr. Klitschko, are you still here? I don't know if he's still here, but again, thank you very much for opening up the building. Instruction did not stop here at the middle school, at the high school. Thank you, Mr. Barry, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Francie as well. We had to break that first day, and head for shelter. I can tell you, I think these kids will never forget their Junior Olympic experience. I know I won't. I want to talk about our spring garden beautification process that's been going on. A number of volunteers, Mr. Kaczynski as well. We've spent a lot of time donating the time, supplies, in collaboration with our greenhouse efforts. We're hoping that this kind of spurs more around the district. I also want to thank Unico. I had the honor of attending their dinner last week. They gave tens of thousands of dollars in scholarships to our graduating seniors. I just want to thank them for putting that together and for the opportunity they're giving to our students. Update to the board on real time. Mr. Levine has worked multiple trainings. We've had most of the secretaries across the district, as well as all the administrators, through at least 1, if not 2 days of training. As well, we are on our 3rd day of training for our special services staff, and I've gotten 5 emails per day about that. All the feedback has been incredibly positive. They're grateful to the board for bringing in the system. They're looking forward to putting it truly to work. Ms. Klein and I attended the Garden State Coalition of Schools annual meeting. It was down in Monroe, attended by the Commissioner of Education, Deputy Commissioner Schulman. There was some vigorous conversation about a number of things: budgets, upcoming legislation, certainly teacher evaluation and student assessments. I wouldn't say we necessarily got answers about specifics, but they definitely are framing a vision of where they want to take the state of New Jersey. Last piece of updates, we have some incoming administration. Mr. Matirde, who will be taking over from Mr. Violante as the coordinator of world language. He's been in district a number of times. He's been to every school at this point, tried to visit with all of the teachers that fall under his domain. He's also been in our most recent combined faculty meeting, our staff meeting, he's met with pretty much every teacher in that respect. I've been in communication with him. We're really looking forward to getting him on board full time and really resurrecting it in many ways and working with our teachers, bringing them together K-12 for the world language program. Mr. Courtwright, the incoming principal here at the middle school, has been working. He spent a full day working with the coordinators as well as Mr. Villio in guidance. He's been in the building a number of times meeting with teachers. He's walked the building a number of times both with Ms. Egan and Mr. Cochio, and he's actually going to be back next Wednesday. Very, very excited to be here full time and start moving forward. Finally, Mr. Molinado and I attended the NAPSAC meeting last week, and that was a good-sized group of parents. He was welcomed, I was welcomed. It was actually my first meeting with the group, and just very excited about, number one, communicating. They're looking forward to the new website, hopefully having a part of that, and really feeling more integrated with the district and their efforts. And other than that, it once again exemplifies the energy that's here and there.
Thank you, Mr. Lesnick. Board Secretary's report.
The current focus in the business office has been on wrapping up everything for the 2011 school year. That activity will continue throughout the summer as we begin to prepare for the visit from the auditors as well. In addition to that, we have already started activity for the 2012-13 school year. It's been processing, purchasing for all of the needs of the students so that everything is available before we open the doors in September. We are also in the process of prioritizing some of the small building projects that we will be doing throughout the summer and arranging for the various programs with the administrators who are running them during the months of, basically during the month of July.
Thank you. Next presentation, common language. Mr. President.
And everyone is hello again. Hello? There we go. The March 5th board has promised we have 2 board meetings and we'll have a presentation each board meeting where each of the qualitative goals as required by law. Our 2 goals were common vision and common language. Our common vision or strategic plan will be presented on next meeting. For this meeting, we have the joy and a number of staff who probably can come up and communicate afterwards, share their experiences as we talk about common language. Common language for us takes on a number of issues, but for this year it started for us with evaluation. So we had a common way of talking about what we as professionals do. Our goal was to start communication, actually have conversations. Sorry. Nope. I will stand here. I'll move that one. State of New Jersey, 2 years ago now, came up with what they call EE4NJ, Excellent Educators for New Jersey. They've been kind of steamrolling ahead and it's taken some twists and turns. I know that we put this up on the website for everyone, so I tried to make it as usable a resource for anyone who'd like. That's why you see certain web addresses. If you want to go and find information, everything that the state is doing can be found starting at that website. They have frequently asked questions. They have documents that detail all the work that they have done, going back to the very beginning of the of their process. That said, these are their goals. They're pushing for a universal vision, a common language, clear expectations, differentiated levels of performance, timely and actionable data-driven feedback, etc. You can read the rest. Well, one of the reasons I put that up there is they released this information about 3 months ago. We started our work in July, and what you see is a lot of the things that we've been pushing for right from the beginning, which makes sense, which is really just solid practice. They're now using almost the exact same language that we're using. I say that especially to the board because you've kind of asked us to move the district forward and put us in the best spot to be successful. As you see, all the steps we've taken, even when we've been ahead, are now being mirrored by the language the state uses. Their rationale. One of the things we talked about, we have to look at some hard truths. We talked about making difficult decisions here as educators. There is a policy window that opened up a number of years ago because the press, and they should, started talking about this disconnect between student performance and teacher performance ratings. And the state of New Jersey felt it was their responsibility to step up and do something about that. What did they mean? Our performance as a country when it comes to how our students are doing against other students has been declining. It's been no secret at this point. It has not really been kept under wraps. When you look at international assessment, you look at even things such as our NEEP, our standards are unfortunately heading in the wrong direction, and even with that, performance is still sliding. The big question that people are asking about is, if student performance is going that direction, why when we look at teacher performance ratings do they all stay the same? And so we were kind of pressed in that way. And because of that, a number of groups, organizations that become big business have really kind of pursued this as an avenue that's popular right now. I don't think it's popular. I think it's something that we have to do in general. It's something we're the professionals, we're the educators, you, the board, look to us to teach the children of Nutley, and we have a great staff here. So the question is, what are we doing about that to kind of stay ahead? The widget effect, again, the website is up there. Feel free to look at it. But they've made a ton of information available based on this idea that regardless of what they've done in the past, evaluations for educators have pretty much stayed the same. I don't just mean teachers. I mean administrators and anybody else involved in school district's operation. We really have kind of maintained a plateau regardless of how students are performing. It's raised a number of questions, and so the state has taken action. You see the timeline you can go through, but just to summarize. They got together a task force, and they did research on what all sorts of countries and what we're doing across the United States, people are doing to evaluate that is showing effect, that is supporting great teachers and becoming better, is highlighting teachers who have concerns so that we can help them with those concerns and they can grow. And at the end of the day, it's looking at student performance to make sure the buck stops where it's supposed to, which is that students are learning and able to perform. They got together some money, and they started E4NJ, and they released a grant. The grant opportunity was made available last summer, and again, walking in here, it was pretty much the last thing I wanted to touch. But as I talked to the board, as I spoke with our association and the administrators and teachers in district, no one was afraid of this. In fact, we had many people stepping up saying, if anyone's going to lead the charge, it really should be here. It should be us, why not? And so while I was kind of looking to come in slowly and build relationships, people wanted to apply for the grant, so we did. We applied for the grant. We had 0 of 9 indicators in place. And that's before the work that the grant's supposed to inform. We knew that anyway. We still made our best case. We did not receive the grant and said, you know what? We didn't get the money. We're still going to move forward with what we think is right. So while this first year has been going on, we've been doing our work while the pilot schools have been doing theirs. I'll talk a little bit more of the comparisons in a little bit, but just so you see what's coming, they issued a grant application for what they're calling Cohort 2, a second group of schools. They're going to continue to fund the first cohort, 19 schools, but they've issued another $600,000 to school districts to jump in and pursue this as well. I will say that the State Department has been very good about this, very supportive, and they are actually listening. They've gone through the first cohort, they've kind of learned from mistakes, they're sharing the troubles that districts have run into, and they pull back. The initial plan was to roll out a statewide evaluation system for this September. They recognize that we're not ready to do that, so they pulled back from it. They're actually running the second cohort as lessons learned. And they're, right now, as you can see from the last, their current, and I say current target date for statewide rollout, it's the September 2013, sorry, for the 13-14 school year. Again, they've been very understanding about learning as we go. I really get the feeling that they do, in fact, want to do it right. And because of that, they're not mandating one way. They're asking districts to try what they think is best, share the results as part of a larger conversation, and from those decisions, we all learn from each other's both successes and struggles, and we can hopefully come up with the best possible system. That said, there are specific requirements. We did not apply for the second cohort, even though we applied for the first. We did not apply for very specific reasons, which I'll detail by the end, but suffice to say, this part of the presentation, I don't think as a district we completely agree where the state wants us to go. And by taking their money, we have to go there. By not taking their money, we can do the work on our own. And so we chose not to apply. That said, there are things that we have to, all districts who did not apply or are not accepted as a part of the second cohort, have to achieve or attain based on a certain timeline. We have to create a committee, we have to select a tool, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are there for people to read. We've already done all of those things. So as far as September 2013, the way things are written right now, we're already done. And that's because of the work that the staff did this year. The administrators, your faculty and staff, they really jumped on board from day one. And because of that, we're in a way a full year ahead. And in many ways, I think, as we'll talk, we're farther ahead than many of the pilot districts. Common language for the purpose of the board. Again, I'm going to skip through these slides, but we wrote goals, specific qualitative and quantitative goals as prescribed by the state. This is the text, and I'm going to go through more specifically in a second. But just so it's there as a, as I said, a resource. This is the actual measurable piece that we've had to achieve this year. And that's what we've been working towards since July, since August. We had a plan. We wanted to work together. We wanted to support the implementation of a more successful system than the one we had. And the idea of culminating a report to the Board of Education on where we've come based on specific indicators we set as our objectives. So what have we done? Again, summer 2011, we applied for the grant. We were not successful, but even the work applying for the grant was great because we had to pull in a number of staff members, administrators, teachers, sharing that information with the board to give us all a common starting place. We formed a district committee that's met several times through the year. And through that committee and the work we did over the summer, we actually selected Charlotte Danison's framework for professional practice. We had to choose a framework, one of the requirements, where there's actual multiple levels of performance and language that describes that performance. We made that selection early on. And during the summer, we actually trained a group of administrators and lead teachers to prepare for opening. This all happened rapidly. And what the state is asking districts to do in a year, we did in 2 months. to set ourselves up successfully for the coming year. In September, we trained all faculty when they came back. We basically talked candidly. We said we had specific goals. This is why we were doing it. We talked about the widget effect. We talked about what the state was doing. We talked about the opportunity that Nutley has right now to kind of charge ahead and find a right path that we can share with our districts. Through the course of this school year, we've been training observers almost on a monthly basis. And by observers, that's both your building administration as well as district administrators. We do that by sharing observations, going in and watching a specific teacher together and talking about it both together and with the teacher. We actually watch videos of instruction and actually norm, if you will, by having conversations about what we saw, using the framework to try and be more specific and clear. We've continued in small groups around the district, training different groups of faculty, having them use the framework, having them speak with the common language, and actually try and evaluate themselves and their peers. We've implemented a different process for evaluation, including both informal and formal, as well as annual evaluations. And even though some of the language may be similar, the nuts and bolts of them have become proven very different. I'm sure the teachers here can speak to it better than I can. Finally, technology-based observations will be held off on this one till the very end. The new tool the board brought in for student assessment also serves us when assessing teachers. Separately, it allows everyone to enter information into one area. We can then disaggregate that information and see where we're strong, where we need work, etc. When we talked in September, what we talked about was conversations. We wanted to be talking about what we do and specifically how well we're doing it, and then figure out how we can do it better no matter how well we're doing it moving forward. We kept coming back to conversations, and every step at every level, our idea was to really create a fruitful conversation using consistent language. That's why again it's called the common language. So the first thing that we had to do as far as our goal was to select a framework. Again, the state's recommending that they take 2 or 3 months, if not half a year, for districts to do that. We started pulling in a ton of people. We did it in 2 months. We picked that framework, and that was, in many instances, the easy part. We talked about our objectives based on this framework. I've been saying the same thing for 10 months. The evaluation system is about growth, it's about learning, it's about accountability in that order. It seems that the third one on that list seems to be getting all the headlines, and people think it's the focus. Well, we decided that wasn't going to be the fact here. Growth is learning that you can see in practice. It's a change in practice based on learning that occurs. You can have a ton of learning and no growth. Growth is what we want to see, because growth means a change in a professional practice, which eventually should inform a change in student performance. But this is what we've been pushing from the beginning, and this is what we think the whole process is all about. We had a clearly defined process involving formal and informal. We, as I said, rolled out a specific process. We defined types of visits, informal visits versus formal visits, what a walkthrough is. We have very specific definitions for language that is used in education all over the place to mean different things. We could not get on the same page unless we were all speaking the same language. And so administrators, teachers, and the rest, we defined what the types of visits were. We talked about the parts of a visit, what you do when you first get in, what you do while you're there, how you look for meaningful information, not just sit in the classroom and try and catch everything. We talked about what conferences were, and this is a big change. I know we're in the annual season right now. I talked to a number of administrators that are having some struggles getting through them because they're having such great conversations with teachers that they take an hour and a half to 2 hours at times. We talked about conversations, well, it means that we're spurring those. But this idea of having conferences both before and after an evaluation, so that we're on the same page in the learning cycle, the same as it would for any of our students, continues for our professionals. We developed very specific documents. Those documents include supportive documents for teachers and for administrators, sets of questions, resources that we can use, examples, district-approved language. It also includes the documents that are the backbone of our system. The evaluation documents for informals, for formals, for what we use for walkthroughs, and we developed them based on feedback we're getting from the administrators and from teachers. But having one consistent and consistently used set of documents was critical. Again, guidance documents and the governing documents. The biggest piece, and this is a piece that we still need to continue to work on, is alignment. While it wasn't part of our goal, I want to talk about it now. Alignment. We're talking about validity. We're talking about inter-rater reliability. The fact that any teacher or any administrator should be able to walk in, witness instruction, or look at an artifact and come to similar determinations about the effectiveness of that artifact or that instruction. That's only going to come by sharing the load, by working together, and by actually going in and continuing these conversations that we're having, within our new common language. Next piece that we're required to do. An annual review assesses the entire year. Well, here we are. We're working on that now. And again, what we've been looking for, the conversations I've been having with staff members, I talk with teachers, both formally and informally. I talk with the association regularly, constantly talking with the administrators. Everyone says, regardless of what has or has not been going on, there's a new level of dialogue when it comes to professional practice. That's because of the staff. It's because they trusted, they believed us when we said we were about growth first. They've been willing to sit down and have conversations. Have there been bumps in the road? Absolutely. But we've been willing to kind of ride out those bumps together and kind of get through those conversations by asking good questions and hopefully listening to one another and waiting for answers. Our goal, again, help practitioners examine all aspects of teaching. I've had some great conversations with teachers that, based on their own peers, their own colleagues, are some of the best teachers we have in the district. They're learning through the process. I've been pushed in different ways. Here are things I haven't thought of in years. I never thought about doing it differently. These are phrases that are coming from teachers to us, and they're coming in a positive. People are excited about what we do, we have them, but now we're talking about it in a different way. Connection to professional development to district goals, evaluating needing the rest. This is a key point that the state is pushing. We have to make sure that we're looking about where we put our resources based on what we need. In the past, evaluation has been a very individual process. What we're trying to do is connect those individual pieces to a collective whole, so we can figure out where we need things. I need to know if I'm struggling in one area, even if I'm a master teacher, where is there a teacher in my building that's not struggling in that area that I can talk to? Before, I may not have even realized I need to have the conversation. Now I realize I need to have the conversation and know where I can go to have it effectively. So these are keys. We talked about connecting to goals. Goals are an integral part now. In the past, we had goals as far as our PGP, and we had level of light goals. We had very, to use members of the LPDC, comprehensive goals. We really had one goal for everyone. And it really doesn't work that way, unfortunately. What we've done now is we've integrated our goals into our process. The goals become the guidance. We set them now. We have set them this year. People have been talking about them toward the end of the year. And then all of next year, that's what we're working toward. When we talk about reflection, focus on practice or professional development, it's toward achieving these goals. Come March and April next year, we reflect on whether or not we've achieved those goals. Again, the idea being, if we sit down now, and I have a conversation with a teacher, or a guidance counselor, or a nurse, or a principal, and we talk about this goal and how, given their respective role, they can help the district achieve that goal. And we're having those conversations with every single person. The likelihood that we actually achieve those goals a million times greater than if we didn't have those conversations at all. This time next year, we'll reflect on the current goals, and we will use that information to set goals for the coming year. We have building goals as well. Each building got their teams together based on what they felt their needs were, looking at information. And we have goals based on specific content areas, on general curriculum and assessment issues, as well as they've written goals about the common language. They want to get into each other's classrooms, they want more professional development, and they want time to talk to each other. And we've heard those things, and we've tried to put those in place as best as we can, so that next year we are successful. Part of this conversation is not just the teachers saying this is where we are, it's our staff members, administrators, and teachers saying this is what we need. As the Board of Education and as the district, providing those things so they can be successful. So that's a key piece of what we're trying to do. Common language, again, part of it required by the state is that we collect and analyze the data produced by the system, not student performance data. The actual information of data produced by our evaluations. In the past, we've been completely paper-based. It's been one-to-one, and that's pretty much as far as it went. We're required by law now to combine that to start looking at themes or trends in the district. We do that in our system. We can now pull data. We have 4 domains that our teachers evaluated themselves on, and they have been evaluated on by administration from the get-go. With one report, we can now look to see, even within domains, how we're rating ourselves. These are these are the administration, and how our teachers are rating themselves based on how they look at their own practice. This informs conversations. We can drill this information down, not to specific teachers. We're looking within our framework to specific components or elements. So we can start to see we've got some incredibly strong performance going on, let's say in domain 3C, But we have some questions about 3A, what can we do about it? And now instead of not knowing what to talk about, we know exactly what to talk about, and the framework guides that conversation. So this is direct information I pulled as of this morning because information from the administrators is still being put in. This reflects about 98% of our faculty as far as their reflections. And as of now, probably about 50 to 60% on the previous slide that our administrators are putting in the annual evaluations. This is meant to help us target where we need to look when it comes to professional development resources.
Russ, what sticks out in those slides?
What sticks out with these slides? Honestly, it's pretty much exactly where I expected us to be, not having that with our first year's worth of experience. What you're going to find when anyone starts using the rubric is that overall, we kind of see a trend. And as you continually use that rubric and you have the difficult conversations that come with looking at something specifically, pulling observations and artifacts, then you start to see more of a gradation as you move through. The other piece was, we talked with the association about this. This is evaluations. This is about how well we do or do not do our jobs. And based on what the state has been saying and what the media has been saying, it's very difficult sometimes to stand up and be willing to say, yes, I'm going to take a hard look at myself or at my building, because this is going to go on paper. But this has to be built over a number of years of us saying it's about growth and making it about growth. And people, as I said earlier on, will make the right decisions for the right reasons in the right way, and people will buy in. I can tell you, though, the simple fact that you have this information, most districts, most of the cohort districts, are struggling to get this. The staff here was willing to say, you know what, we'll do it. Okay, and they're learning as much as they're teaching in the process, but the big important thing is that I think as a district, what these show you is that we're leading. You never see this other. And again, one of the pieces that the state is looking to do is move to individual teachers. You'll notice from the information, that's not where we're moving. Okay, we're moving toward what the information shows us within our common language. Because that allows us to focus the conversation on the practice and not the person. And that's what we're looking to do. Last piece of the goal would be today, annual report. After all the work that took place this year, and it was not easy, as I said, if you look at the cohort districts, you have certain districts in the first cohort that will be into year 2. They're nowhere near where we are as a district. That comes from the leadership of the administration, the association, and it comes from the faculty and staff being willing to do this. So what are we planning to do? We have to convene what they call a district evaluation advisory committee, which we already mostly have. We have to add 2 members of the board, and we have to add some parents. And the committee is formed. That's the one outstanding piece, and we're 100% done for September of 2013. So we can all take a year off. I wish. That said, this summer, what are we looking to do? We've already had planning. We have administrative retreat training. We're putting all of our administrators together, and this is a central focus. How do we talk about what we're doing? How to become more specific? Faculty and administration work groups. We want to pull teams together to start talking about and using the framework. Rounds training. We have been approached by a number of districts, some actual cohort 1, some cohort 2 districts, or hopeful cohort 2 districts, to partner. They like what our staff has been able to do. They believe in the philosophy, they see where we're going, and they want to leverage their resources, partner with us. What we'd like to do is actually get some of our teachers paired up with some of their teachers to continue those conversations in a different way. When we talk about data, which is a whole other conversation, there are 3 questions you have to ask at all times, which unfortunately we haven't been asking. But you have to ask, how am I doing? In compared to myself, in compared to a standard, and in compared to others. And so at this point, we're a year into this, we want to start involving some others. Will they be doing our evaluations? Yeah. It's about conversations. We will be traveling to their district, they'll be coming here, and we'll be doing rounds visits together. This already started at the high school. They had an internal rounds committee. They traveled around the building, they came back and followed the entire rounds process, and the information that came out of that round, of those rounds, are actually informing the strategic planning going on through the middle stage process at the high school. It's a powerful piece, and it puts the practitioners in the driver's seat. And that's where we're trying to go. As far as September, we want to make sure that we focus on our goals. When we open in September, one of the things we're going to remind all staff is that their annual reflections start day 1. It's not a document that you fill out in April or May. If we're working all year, you can go into Performance Matters Fast Observer, you can open it up one time, and when you do work specific to your goals, you can stop and reflect. Come March, April, May, your reflection should be filled with exactly what it is that you need to be filled with. It's not that we're trying to stop and remember what happened in October. When it happens, we try and reflect. This is not supposed to be hours-long work. This is, I did something toward the goal, let me think about it. And reflection itself is guided by the framework. If you want to know if you're doing it well, there's never confusion. Open up the framework. It comes to instruction, it comes to my planning, it comes to professional practice. All the language is there, which is why it's such a powerful tool. There shouldn't be any confusion. And the other piece, all the work the state is doing right now, again, focuses on teachers, and this year they're opening up the first cohort about principals. We have a framework for every certificate staff member in the district, and while we weren't as successful rolling it all out as well as we were with the teachers, the process stays the same. The process is what's solid. Those frameworks have been rolled out to the other areas. Well, now we have to involve them in the process. They need to know that starting September, they are fully engaged and we'll have training for them, knowing that they're learning a little bit behind because they haven't had the same experience through the first year. But we're, again, when it comes in that vein, they're not even talking about the other places, but if we felt it was good for one of our professional groups, it's got to be good for all of our professional groups. That includes our administration, our central office, how we work with everyone. If this makes sense as professional practice, it needs to make sense for everyone. In the fall, we're going to definitely start scheduled peer-to-peer observations, allowing teachers to get into other teachers' rooms and have conversations with those teachers. It's not evaluative. It's conversational. It's observational. It puts the teacher both in a positive light, talking to their colleagues about their own practice, but it also switches the teacher to the other side, trying to figure out how difficult it can be to gather the right evidence to give meaningful feedback to teachers on their practice. We will continue by supporting common playing time. Again, as I talked about, instilling instructional rounds both in the district and across the district and with a partner district. And then we're going to continue, as always, our administrative trainings minimum once a month. In December, the committee will make a presentation to the board on how we're moving on all of these pieces. And in January, as required by law, but it's good practice, we'll have a public presentation. I did want to point out that our Common Vision presentation is, again, the 25th. And before I conclude, again, trying to do without notes, making sure I hit everything. The biggest idea is that no matter how good we are, we can be better. And that we can do that by building trust and trying to foster growth through a very specific process. When we set these goals in July, all the pieces that are there, none of them were in place. Every single one of them now is in place. We've made it through a difficult year of transitions. But the good news is that next year, that doesn't change. Everything has been set once, everyone's been through it one time. Everyone knows what's coming. As long as we keep it front and center, there should be no changes to the process, just to how effectively we utilize the process. So I'm happy to report to the board that based on our initial goals from July and August, we've achieved every single piece of them, culminating with this presentation. And I definitely want to thank the administration, the association leadership, and certainly the staff, both those that are here today, as well as those across the district in every area, because they've all kind of said yes. We will take the risk, we'll take the challenge, we'll step up, and in many instances where these other districts are still struggling about it, and you can read about that in the paper, here you can see where we've been. Thank you, and so much.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard.
Just check it out. Take it out.
For your leadership.
Yeah, it'll pop out.
Your thinking of the district and the process that you described. So thank you very much and commend you on the direction you're taking. Committee reports.
Yes, Mr. President. The administration committee met on June the 4th. I want to thank Mr. Scalera for being there to give myself and Russ some guidance and some help on where we were going. We met with Johnson Controls. He gave us a presentation on the fully funded green improvement which we're looking into. We spent some time and talked about the uniform issue and where we might be going in the future with some type of a survey that we might want to put out. Discuss that. We also discussed the Radcliffe School chimney issue, which some of you are aware of, but cannot. We'll bring you up to date on it. We're looking into repairing that. We spent some time talking about job descriptions, particularly the athletics with the head coach and assistant head coaches. So these are being reviewed and revised now. If you have any concerns, which I know some board members think, make sure that you bring them forward to myself and Mr. Squire. We'll make sure that they get dealt with. As you can see, we've been working our way through the policies. We're trying to deal with the policies that are most instrumental to us now concerning improvements or changes in our educational system. So we're updating those policies. You'll see tonight there's some second reading policies, and then there's quite a few for the first reading. Simply the first reading are put out there to make you aware of what we're working on. Most of them, there are not many changes to them, or are no changes to them. There are a couple that are. If you have any concerns, please reach myself. We're obviously the superintendent. We also talked about, on the 25th, I think we're going to have a presentation on some more athletic recommendations from the sports reports. That'll be on the 25th. We talked about some personnel changes with the upcoming appointments. We talked about the security update, including the installation of the swipe cards and the readers, reporting of the building. There's a lot going on throughout the district, as you know. And again, thank you, board members.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Reed.
Yes, similar to Trustee Kaczynski's report, the academic committee, we met this past Wednesday, June 5th, I think it was, and we certainly covered a lot of terrain during that meeting. Regarding the policy and regulations issue, there are a few policies on tonight's agenda that are there for a first read. We review policies and regulations pertaining to our field trips, high school transcripts, high school graduation. Now, this all emanated from our work with program and study, that being for the middle school as well as the high school. So what you're going to see this evening are policies and regulations that are congruent with that program and study. We'll also see, regarding this issue with field trips, I know that we've discussed this issue time and time again, at least for our teachers to provide a clear rationale regarding certain field trips. So at least, again, we'll see that again in the policies that are put forth this evening. And these policies apply for both curricular and co-curricular activities, so whether it's a club or what have you, that's going to also be on the agenda. We also broached the topic of tuition students. So the committee reviewed and discussed their ideas regarding whether or not to allow tuition students into the district. Case in point, if we have a student from, let's say, Clifton and or Bloomfield, and he or she wants to pay tuition to come to Nutley, that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of, I guess, $15,000 in that neighborhood for a year. But the overcrowding issue, I know that was an issue that reared its ugly head a few weeks ago. So this is a idea that will apply more so to the middle school as well as the high school, not our elementary schools. The academic committee did make a specific request to the director of curriculum and instruction that if we do move in that direction, we want clear-cut guidelines regarding admission criteria, whether or not that's letters of recommendation from the student's teacher and or transcripts. That's something that we want to have reviewed by the administration before we make any determination. And of course, space is always an issue. We also talked about the summer school program. Ms. Villani discussed the possibility of running a summer program for students grades 1 through 8. This would specifically apply to students who are receiving, or at least exclusively, Title I funding. So the application was submitted to the county, I want to say, on, was it May 30th? And that's going to require board approval. So that's something that we'll see down the pipe. This will operate during the month of July, and the committee members also expressed concerns to Trustee Russo. How sustainable are these programs that we're going to put forth in the district? We do not want to set our students up for failure, but the board did make that commitment. As long as these funds are available, Title I funds, we will at least move in that direction to try to secure those dollars for the district. And again, once the needs are met for the Title I students, we will branch out to include other students in the district who may need that remedial type help during the summer months. Regarding our AP policy, again, using that expression, it continues to rear its ugly head. Once we start peeling back the layers, and I want to thank the administration for moving in this direction, that we find out that there are training opportunities available to our AP instructors. That's being offered through college boards. But for some way, shape, or form, our teachers have not been capitalizing on this training. It's not mandatory, but it is highly recommended and encouraged that we do move in a direction that will secure the delivery information and materials related to our students. And based on past performance, the district wants to make a concerted effort and at least make a financial commitment towards this initiative. ballpark figures, I just don't want to start throwing around random numbers, but I think the board will commit to at least $10,000 per year. And that will cover per diem rates as well as training and travel for the AP trainings. And we do want to have a commitment from teachers that when we do forego this training this particular summer regarding per diem rates, that for future trainings that teachers will be responsible for doing this on their own time. That's what we want from the AP teachers. But we will be there to provide the cost coverage for their registration as well as the travel. State report cards, Superintendent Lazovic did a nice job addressing that issue. One issue that was brought to our attention by the Director of Curriculum and Instruction was this idea of student-computer ratio, that apparently the state did see some pitfalls regarding that with our computers aging out. It's an issue that has been brought to our attention in the past, and I'm sure that our Director of Instructional Technology will be moving to hopefully close that void. Regarding state test scores, we are waiting to have complete data. I think we have Cycle 1 data available for NJASC grades 3 through 8, as well as HESPA. And these data will be entered into Performance Matters. Again, adopting Russell's approach earlier of moving towards a data-driven approach towards decision-making, and it's an opportunity to help inform curriculum and instruction. So that's something that we'll be doing with our state test scores. High school instruction, again, borrows from some of the points that were addressed earlier by Superintendent Lazovic regarding some of the academic change at the high school. Case in point, this current year, we're going to actually be moving towards a final exam schedule, and we will have Principal Barry, Mr. Williams, Mr. Francia, as well as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, actually doing walkthroughs to make sure that teachers are in their classrooms, not to be doing these spot checks per se, but we just want to ensure that this first year while we're rolling out, we see a few smiling faces in the crowd, but that's a direction we want to take as a board. Program of studies. Again, we're moving full steam ahead. Come this September, we'll be updating the current program of studies for the middle school as well as the high schools. And I really don't want to get so involved with this, and I should leave this up to Gina to describe, but is it SCEDS? How do you say that? SCEDS. Our district has been out of compliance for about 2 years regarding the data that is available to the state pertaining to the connection of student and staff ID numbers, the course offerings, building schedules, and course rosters, K through 12. That being said, the district has deployed all its efforts, all hands on deck to try to remedy this matter. As I mentioned, we're 2 years behind the curve on this. And unfortunately, it's going to delay some of the timelines that have been proposed for our website, as well as some of the deliverables that the committee has asked for regarding real time. But that being said, we understand that we're kind of in crisis mode right now, so we want to address this. I know you're looking at it a little ambiguously, but that's what I've been told. So I'm sorry, I'm pointing to Vicki right there. Real-time parent portal. Yes, so that we have it right here. So we have a draft, and that's regarding our time frame regarding the parent portal. So we do have some definitive time frame in terms of when we want to see the NCIS database rolled out, particularly the parent portal, and we'll be talking about that at future meetings. One last point regarding No Child Left Behind funds, Title I funds that need to be spent by the end of August, and I think we actually have a nice plan this year in terms of how those dollars are going to be spent regarding strategies instruction that will take place during the month of July, specifically for language arts and mathematics, grades 1 to 8. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Finance Committee will be meeting tomorrow, and we'll report on it next week. Hearing of citizens. We now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Our board regulations allow 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once, only after all others wishing to speak on a topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please remember that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember always to state your name and address each and every time you address the board. The first person wishing to speak, please step forward. Seeing no one, I'll close this portion of the meeting. Dr. Reed, will you move academic resolutions 1 through 4?
Yes, Mr. President. Regarding academic resolutions 1 through 4, please move as stated.
Second. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Morton? Yes. Mrs. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo? Yes. Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Casado?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, we move administrative resolutions 1 and 2.
Yes, Mr. President, I move administration resolutions 1 and 2 concerning the adoption of policy second reading and the adoption of policy first reading. I so move.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin? Yes. Mrs. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Scazado?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes. Mr. Sposato, will you move finance resolutions 1 through 10?
Move finance resolution 1 through 10 as written.
Second.
Discussion. Yes.
Yes, resolution number 6, approval of COBRA agreement with benefit analysis. I see the company is Benefit Analysis, Inc. Did that follow, I didn't see any RFP, RFI, did that follow all of the purchasing requirements before we award this contract?
We received a quote from our insurance broker for the COBRA services. Last year, they had provided the district with a quote. At that point, we were using COBRA Elect, which was a product from Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they were closing down that division. So they brought us a company called Ceridian. We've been having a lot of problems with Ceridian this year, especially with respect to communication, responsiveness, and overall customer service. So when we had done the FSA proposals, Benefit Analysis partnered with Colonial Life to provide that proposal to the district. And at that time, they had said that they would be willing to give us a proposal regarding our COBRA to also help us reduce the cost of that nature. So that's where we received the proposal from.
And I don't think they really follow the guidelines, what we've done with our new proposal and the adoption, we're all adopted here today. If there's more than one company, even if they're informal quotes, depending on the cost, I think there should still be at least 3 quotes, and we should follow the policy.
The estimated cost for the year with Benefit Analysis to provide the service is under $2,000.
And then you could use the informal process, which we put in place. We can put 3 informal ones, and we don't have to go out for a formal process. We put that all in place under certain amount.
This is not a professional service, however.
I guess the question is, legally, did we follow the guidelines that this particular board has set up moving forward with the RFPs, the RQs? I know it's under a $2,000 bid, but are we still following the guidelines that we ourselves set up? Yes or no?
And to letter of the law, yes, in the sense that because of the amount, because it's not a true professional service, it wouldn't fall under that. Now, what we've done this year, especially with this Slim request, what we're trying to put together is for this entire year, the schedule of any services that we go to out-of-track contract or true professional, not regardless of the amount. So with the calendar, we can actually remove this entirely into the calendar fashion. Given the fact we use a broker and the way things have been in the past, we're required to have the COBRA coverage. And as these things pop up in the first year, this is not something I would recommend we go out for even 3 quotes necessarily if we're happy with service and it's falling in line with what is acceptable amounts and falls underneath our threshold as this does. But moving forward, we have to have conversations about these before we talk about it.
And I was going to say, Mr. Lazarevich wasn't here last year, but this came up before, came on board last year, the same subject on the same issue. So that's why I'm bringing it up. I know you weren't here.
And it goes back to our communications. That's simply what the board is looking for, is that communications ahead of time, so we don't find ourselves.
And that's why I hope the calendar, I know when we have to talk about what, so we're in a timely fashion to get that information out before we actually have to make a decision.
Dr. Reed.
As a follow-up to Trustee Scalera's point regarding resolution item number 3 under finance, student accident and athletic insurance, again, I'm looking at that amount, $24,405 with Goldsworth Company. Should that have been put out for bid?
Again, this is also a service that is provided through IMAC that they they do go out and look for the best quote possible for the district. And at this point, there aren't too many insurance companies that provide this coverage, and this was the best quote.
Part of it is the fact that we have a broker that's doing that. That's part of the service. We don't want to go out and pay the broker, so we're doing this on a regular basis, negotiating the best possible price for the district based on these kinds of services.
How do you know it's the best possible price?
So they do share that information. I'm asked, they can give us names and information as far as what I'm sure we get defines to me as who else was on the document, where they lay.
So we've never seen that information as trustees. That'd be helpful in the future.
Sure.
What if we have a new broker July 1st, though? We put out an RFP for the insurance brokers. We're approving these same sets as broker this year.
Unfortunately, part of this stuff has to be in by July now. We have to have this covered, and this is where the calendars don't line up. So moving forward, as we look for a new broker, which we are, that's something that we have to take into account next year, but because of the way the contract and the calendar line up, we're really, in a way, married to the broker that we have while we have them.
But isn't the broker getting a commission on it for next year, even though they might not be our broker for next year?
We're going to commission on it for signing now. This is what we have to do for next year. Yes, that's part of it. Whoever the next broker is, the same timeline will apply. Remember, the interest is that brokers needs to find us the best deal and make the argument that they in fact did, otherwise they won't be our broker moving forward.
Yes. Mrs. Russo.
Continuing along these lines on number 7, what is our threshold for professional services, and do we follow the same procedure for the accounting firm? When you are asking about the threshold, are you referring to similar the bidding threshold?
Professional services, I thought we established a threshold that we didn't need to go out for RFP for professional services under a certain amount.
This particular item we discussed at the finance committee meeting, and that the auditor is a function. The audit function is a function that we do not want to change auditors every year to go out for bids every year. Typically, companies will keep an auditor for a period of time before they go out and seek a bid. And we felt that this was not the time to do that. Yes.
So 2 finance meetings ago, when we did, never mind. A few finance meetings ago, we did establish an attempt to, I guess, it was calendar, we can get to establish the requirements, but I identified a number of issues, a number of bids, RFQs that have to go out, and one of them was insurance. We did a number of them. We did discuss specifically the accounting one and realized that in light of all the issues we still have outstanding, and we're just familiar with them presently, this one is one that would go out to bid. But correct me if I'm wrong, we also decided that at some point,
Yes.
the order we have,
Absolutely. Yes.
next year, I think, is the target year.
Yes.
So is there,
But in general, we would not.
we
want to go
discussed that a
every year
few
for the audit.
meetings ago.
But I'm not on the finance committee, I didn't.
We did report that to the
So sometimes it's okay not to follow our rules and regulations, and sometimes it is based on the services
I
rendered.
think you have to look at what the professional service is and say whether that is something that should be a policy. Maybe we need to make sure our policy is
Based on the committee's
adjusted so that
recommendation.
certain ones we define it, not a calendar year go out, but over, and this is probably the only one I can think of that falls into that category. So maybe we're going to modify it that the auditor would be every 3 years or 4 years.
The law has to do a 3-year contract, so if we're not concerned, that bid should go out for 3 years and next time, not a solve the issue.
And again, we can't sign for more than a single year at a time, but that's one of the reasons, just to confirm again, we talked, it's supposed to be about communication, again, I know the finance committee did report out in 2 meetings ago, I think. But the issue again for everyone is that we want to make sure we have the calendar, we know all the different services we need to talk about, and part of our prescribed rules it includes the discretion of the board to say this year based on certain specific things, as long as we communicate those things, this is why we're not going to bid for them, which most of these actually fall right into the base of the calendar.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin? Yes. Ms. Flynn? Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes on 1 and 2, and 4 through 10, no on resolution number 3 due to lack of information to make an informed decision.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Scalera?
I'll abstain on number 6 and number 3, and on number 7, just like to make a note for the audio to go out for the RFP next year. Yes.
Mrs. Pisano?
Yes.
Mr. Copeland?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, we move personnel resolutions 1 through 4.
Yes, Mr. President, I move resolutions, personnel resolutions number 1 through 4 as so printed.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchek Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Scalera?
Yes.
Mr. Pisano?
Yes.
Mr. Gupta?
Yes. Hearing of citizens. In this section, we allow questions or comments on all school-related matters. Our regulations allow 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. As I stated earlier, all statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. But please remember to always state your name and address each and every time you address the board. The first person wishing to speak, please step forward. Seeing no one, I'll close this portion of the meeting. Old business. Old business. Not new business.
An RFP was out for an insurance broker, it was advertised, and I'm concerned. The plan and the broker are usually okayed on July 1st, so if we choose a new broker, how are they going to be able to get us quotes for a new plan in time?
The new broker would be, he'd be our broker for next year, and we'd be getting the quotes for the insurance, for carriers for July of 2013.
Okay, because the RFP was for this coming year.
I mean, the broker is the one who negotiates for us. The contract is with the insurance companies, my understanding.
Right,
So
but
if
a
you change
broker-
brokers,
Right, but a broker usually does a lot more. They usually do presentations for the employees, they usually have any questions for us. So how can we have one broker and then have a new one, but they didn't even set up the plan? Like, how could they even answer questions about anything?
well, if they're a good broker, in my experience in the past has been, if you have a competent broker, that they'll be familiar with the plans, and if they're not, they'll get up to speed pretty quick.
But they're not getting paid anything, so why would they?
Well, there will be in future years.
Yeah, the future years, but a whole year they're not gonna get paid anything and service the district? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, but for a whole year, just because they're interested? And the last one gets a little commission of like 200,000 for doing nothing then?
He had serviced us the previous year, and, I mean, it's a 1-year lag, and it seems like there's 1-year lag in the commission.
That doesn't make sense. This should have been started like in February then, or for this new year. So that they could have given us quotes.
Looking at the states, it depends what date we signed the last one and when it expires. That's part of the problem. So if the last one is set to expire, they can't cut that one short. So it's not us, this current board, but wherever it started could be the problem.
Right, but you can get quotes beforehand.
Well, then there is a time frame where you can get quotes, because a carrier will look at experience, and there's a point in time which they will say, you know, I'm not going to get a quote until March or whatever time frame, because they want to see 9 months worth of data.
So basically,
So
the
you're not going to get a quote
RFP,
from the insurance
but then the
company.
RFP we put out then is meaningless.
No, if we change brokers, we'll be changing for next year.
I don't know how, can I follow up on that? I just wish we could get some, I think we need some clarity on that, whether or not we can appoint a broker, let's say, pursuant to this RFP, for purposes of a contract that won't start until July 1st, 2013. I'm not sure if we can. I would just like some clarity, if that's what
I
you're saying.
think
I don't know what I'm
the
saying.
question I have is, carrier pays the commission. Are we paying it to the broker of record at the point in time, or the broker of record when the contract is signed? I don't know the answer to that question. I think that's the first question. We have to ask that question first, because if in fact it's the broker of record at any point in time, then they'll be getting the commission next year, the new broker. I don't know the answer to that question. So it's an assumption that saying that the current broker will get the whole commission, and I'm not sure that that is the case. I don't know if that's the case or not. I think we have to answer that question first before we jump to before we cart the horse.
Right, yeah, I think it's the broker that actually brokers the deal that gets the commission.
Well, we should find that out. We need to find that out factually, and also find out, and if the answer to that is, it's the one who negotiated the contract gets for the following year, then find out what is the accepted practice in the industry for a transition, because people change brokers from time to time, and everybody would be faced with the same dilemma. Unless so we have to find out what the practice is. And then we can proceed in some fashion. But right now, we're speculating. Any other new business? If not, executive session. Whereas the Board of Education will be discussing matters exempt from public discussion pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education recess to close executive session at this time to discuss student matters, personnel specifically board vacancy, and negotiations. Further resolved that the results of discussion on the agenda of such meeting, the Board of Education, please, you're not finished. Just be quiet for 30 seconds more, and be okay. We further resolve that the results of the discussion will be made public by inclusion on the agenda of the subsequent meeting of the Board of Education, or when the reasons for discussing such matters in closed session no longer exist. So moved. All those in favor? We'll be returning from executive session.